This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hi, everyone. This is host of Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, Dr. Barbara Vocatus, podcast on education, innovation in education. I am interviewing some incredible guests who are really changing education as we speak. We don't have to revolutionize the entire system, I think, but there are people who revolutionizing education and make it incredible for children and how they experience it every day. And today I have such a guest. But first of all, I would like to welcome a wonderful audience on the show. And today I'm sure you're going to learn a little bit more about what an incredible science teacher does in the school, how she engages children and what they learn. And this can also be very helpful for other teachers, especially young educators, I think, who are looking for some ideas, examples, and inspiration and empowerment, right? And if we can see what can be done, then we cannot have an excuse of not doing it. Welcome on the show, Patricia Miranda.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm just so incredibly inspired by what your principal is doing, but I know, and this is Mr. Torres. I would like to remind everybody. Some time ago, I had Luis Torres, on the show. It was incredible to hear what he's doing in the school. And then he says, well, I have some really cool teachers and they can contribute to even more learning about what we can do in education. And I just would like to tell our wonderful audience that Patricia is certified STEM science teacher. It's certified through grade 1 through 9. So that's a pretty good scope because it covers, so to speak, elementary school, but also middle school and actually high school too, a little bit because it's ninth grade. And she teaches robotics, coding, and programming, but that's just like some highlights. And I'm sure she's done some other things too, is doing some other things too, and also is thinking about doing other things as well, because teachers in schools often do a lot of different things. It's just a question is, are these activities contributing to children's growth, right, learning or not? But I know that in this particular school, and not only, there is a lot that teachers are doing to really contribute to this growth. Patricia, if you could add a little bit more to this introduction, a little bit like how you got to this field and what you essentially do as a STEM teacher. And as there's STEM, there's STEAM. Audience might not understand the difference, if there is any. I'm not sure if I understand it myself. And so how you got to the field and maybe some of these differences and what you currently, and what does your job look like in school a little bit? That would be really great to hear.
Great. Yeah. I started working as He's 55 in the South Bronx back in 2015 as a science cluster. And when I started, it was kind of like this old type of science instruction. We had a textbook, we had quizzes, we had tests. It was very traditional and standard and formalized. And Mr. Torres is he's like everything in innovation. He's like, Miss Miranda, take it to the next level. Do whatever you want to do, like get them engaged. And I really started to see how our students just bloomed when they were able to think about things that interest them, think about problems in our communities, come up with solutions, and just got them into this out of the box sort of thinking. So within that same year that I started there, I started working on getting my certification in STEM education, and that really opened my eyes up to what I could do with the students, how I could become a facilitator of this curiosity and really get them into inquiry. And that's when we really said, like, let's fully adopt this STEAM mindset where we're looking at science, technology, engineering, arts, and math as like one cohesive way of thinking and learning and exploring, instead of thinking as science as like this 45-minute period that we do when we're not doing English or math. So it started to just really get the students excited about being at school and doing new things and, being able to take over like their own learning.
I, I, I love this because one thing, what I've noticed, what you said, and I totally see Mr. Torres saying that something like, come on, we got to engage these kids, do whatever you need to do, teach in however way you need to teach. But there is one principle: they need to be engaged. And I mean, I think that if many teachers heard that from their principal, they might be doing something different from what they currently are doing. And I know there are a lot of fabulous teachers who might be teaching in a similar way to you or a little bit different, but have this engagement and motivation in mind. But it would be very interesting to kind of like look under the microscope and understand, what do principals tell the teachers, right? What do the teachers hear? Do they hear something like you heard? Just do whatever you need to do, but you need to engage these kids. I mean, that would really change a lot in the school as far as the teaching, because then you also understand what that principal, the boss, expects. He expects the kids are engaged. This is really a fundamental, I think, to the shift in how we think about teaching. And also, like you said, it's not so much thinking about whether there's this math, here is science, now here we're doing something different. It's just like this division. And in real life, when people are solving problems, they just using all these skills, right? There is some math involved. There is some other ways of knowledge, aspects of knowledge that you need to employ, so to speak. You're not just like in a little math sort of silo or another one. Solving problems requires a lot of different areas and their participation. So I absolutely love it. And I would like to know that, was your education in the way you were prepared as a science teacher in a way that promoted this innovative kind of thinking, how to teach, or not as much? That would be interesting to know.
And I want to say that when I did all my undergrad work, or like even when I did my master's in education, it was really focused about how to teach and like what to teach. And when I started to do my work in STEAM, it was about how students think, what makes them ask questions, how can we get them interested, where do they want to take it, how are they going to solve the problem. And suddenly it was really different, because it was like, what can I give them that's going to spark that kind of curiosity? And it was just totally different than anything that they've ever taught me to do, because now I can open it up to say, if you want to work on this topic, this group's going to work on this topic, this group is going to work on this topic. And it's not like so rigid. Like there's this fluidity there. And I think that keeps them engaged and interested and wanting to like keep going further. Sometimes if you're a student and, reading is something that's really hard for you, or math is like, I hate math, I have a math phobia, they become barriers for everything. And it's like, oh, if I go to school, I have this math test, and then there's nothing else that I could do. I'm not good at school. It becomes like this roadblock that like is putting a stop on what they could be. So I think when we have different opportunities, especially in STEAM, to have all these different entry points for showing what they know, showing how they could be successful, it has limitless, possibilities for them. And I think that's really important. And I see that in my school where, we have students who don't go to museums and they don't go to robotics class or robotics, camp in the summer. Their parents are dealing with other needs and necessities that they have to meet. And, that's always been one of Mr. Torres' huge thing. Like they have all these priorities before extracurriculars and learning. So I have to really like bring those into my classroom as like, their first point of understanding, and then they give them room to take it beyond that. So it's something really special, and I never thought that that's what teaching was until I was there doing it. So,
That is amazing. One thing that I noticed immediately, and am I correct that this approach, as far as looking at the children and like, wow, how they learn, what would motivate them, what would engage them to actually learn, not like what I have to cover or whatever. That is not something that you were taught when you were studying to become teacher, but this is something that happened that you learned as a part of the philosophy of the school where you are.
absolutely. And I think when you see those ways not working, then you have to pivot and say, what works best for my children? And they'll tell you what works best for them if you listen to them and if you know them. So then you have to take what you see in your classroom and you have to say, okay, what can I give this class? What can I give this student? What do they need? And it's really student focused. And then through their own like development of skills, they take on this agency that is, bigger than the curriculum. And that's so important.
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing, and we really need to do something more with sort of like promoting these ideas among future teachers, current teachers. Very, very important. I often think I work myself in the department. We educate future teachers, current teachers, and I often think, what do they hear in those lectures, in those activities? Do they get these ideas? Thinking about curriculum, yes, you have to do certain things, but also look at children, look what they need, look what their engagement is, and that's how you should start. I sometimes kind of doubt that that's how we think. It's really important because that's where it's kind of starts to. I think that the teacher preparation programs also need to do some serious rethinking how we educate teachers. And I also would like to ask you if you could give, this is very important really for me, but not only, how in this type of environment, when children's needs are number one, how neurodivergent children function in this type of learning? Because what we often have and see is that neurodivergent kids in traditional teaching, learning, when the priority is to cover certain curriculum and follow the rules, these kids can function not very well. They will shut down. They will have a lot of disinterest in what's happening, what I'm learning, why I'm learning this. And if they're not engaged, and they have very hard time engaging in something that they have to do, rather than I
Right.
want to learn that. How in your teaching, in your classroom, how these kids function, I would like to know, because I think it's really important.
I think the most rewarding part about STEAM is how neurodivergent students are able to showcase their strengths. They now have this opportunity to showcase everything they know in different ways. It's not about writing an essay. It's not about the essay has to have four sentences or, four paragraphs, four
Yeah.
sentences. It doesn't have all these limitations. Suddenly, they can become leaders. They're running this group and they're coding this project or they're creating this model or like they are taking on a role where they're working collaboratively and sharing what they know and how they're thinking about solutions. And there's no more barriers as to, what they're doing and how successful they're being. There's all these different ways to show what they know. I mean, that's something I always say in my class: show me what you know.
Yeah.
Show us what you know. And like whatever that means for them is what it means for them. If it's a drawing with labels, and I see these intricate drawings that I probably would have never seen if I didn't ask for, like, to do it in their way, if I was asking for a report. So that's really interesting. Or I'm seeing all like these very detailed coded programs, and I'm like, I wouldn't have got that if I asked for a paragraph. So we're seeing it in lots of different ways. And It's also, I get to say, I see these children who maybe in their classroom they feel a little isolated, and now they don't have that because they're working in groups or they're working in pairs, or they get to be the leader and they're distributing the materials or whatever it is. Whatever way helps them feel a part of their own learning and like taking control of that. I think they get that sense of independence that maybe they don't have in other places.
That's amazing because, again, I hear in the way you speak this philosophy of I am looking for the needs and strengths of these children. And there are certain ways in which they might not be able to present what they know because, for a variety of reasons, they have hard time with writing. They're not there yet, whatever it is. But there's other ways they can do it. And because I myself have a neurodivergent child, they're already a teen, but they're incredible with drawings, with art, with drawings, with detail. And like you said, I would never be able to put all that detail. I would not notice it, and I would not be able to express it in drawings and writing. I mean, in like artistic kind of form. And if you let them do it in a little bit different way, you will see that they know quite a bit. But this openness is so important on part of the teacher. It really is something, right? That's so important to kind of like nourish and nurture in itself as a
Absolutely.
teacher.
And it really starts there because, curriculums kind of box you into like whatever the slide is, whatever the lesson is. But the teacher, I'm my kids more than anyone that wrote a curriculum. So I know what they need. And they're going to learn everything that they're supposed to learn, but they can do it in a way that they actually care about, that's meaningful to them, that's memorable. I mean, I can tell you about a lesson that I did when I was in third grade. And when I became a teacher, I was like, I want all my students to say, remember that time in Miss Miranda's class we made these models or we did this? Or, that's the kind of that's how you build lifelong learners, and you have to give them those opportunities. Because if you don't, when are they going to have them?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely amazing. And this understanding is just so important. But if there is administration, principal, people like that who are on the same page, it's just incredibly, incredibly valuable. Could you tell us about one or two most fascinating projects, something that maybe you're working on right now with children, or maybe something that children initiated and you went with it? Something really you would like to share? Well, I'm sure you have a lot of projects like that, but
There's so many things, but one of my favorite things is every year we do the District 9 STEM fair, and every year I let the kids come up with a problem, and then I get to see all these things that they care about that I didn't know that they cared about. And we're very focused on sustainability at our school. And one of the things that came up one of the years was there's so much trash outside in our community, in our neighborhood, and not everywhere looks like that. And if it's like that here, is our pollution causing, you know, other things to not be as good? So then we went into this deep dive about ecosystems and food chains and how, disruptions in the food chain change the entire ecosystem. And they were like, when the garbage flows down to the sewers, where is it going? It's going out to the ocean. We're destroying an entire other ecosystem we never thought about. So they came up with a water filtration system that attaches to like a sewer drain that essentially like stops the runoff from pushing the pollution through the sewers and into the ocean. And we just went off looking at how the sewage system works in New York City, and then they built their filters, and then we 3D printed like a model, and we took it to the STEM fair to Yankee Stadium, and every single person that talked to them were like, they're so into this. And I was like, they came up with it. I showed them how to use a printer. I showed them how to like do the graphics. I showed them some articles, but it was something that they cared about, and they were just so excited to see it to come to fruition. And then they were even more excited to share it. So that was like, and we won first place that year. And
Mm-hmm.
we usually do very well at the STEM fair, and that it just always sticks out to me because that's not something that I would have picked, and they came up with it. So I thought that was so special, and I always give them the agency to take it to what they want to do. Like what do they want to solve? What do they care about? Because maybe in my neighborhood where I live, that's not really something that would have
Mm-hmm.
came to my mind. So they have to have that voice and they have to have that involvement. And I think it just makes it so special. The outcomes are incredible.
Completely. But I do need to ask this question. How do you make sure that all the things that you need to make sure that they are fulfilled, such as standards, how that plays a role within so much agency that children can display and you can go with it, right? But how these two things, how you make it work, because that's important, because some people might say, well, maybe they don't have to follow the standards at all in that school. Who knows? So it's important to speak about that.
No, we're very aligned to the state standards. I do something called like backwards design. So
Hmm.
I look at that standard and I'm gonna say, okay, this is what we have to learn about today. We're gonna learn about the water cycle. We're gonna learn about natural filtration systems, how it all plays together. I have my standard. I can bring it up to them. I can ask them what their questions are. How can we learn more about what they're asking? What solutions are they going to come up with? And each part of it is still touching ELA standards, math standards.
Hmm.
They're collaboratively speaking. They're having discourse. They're doing art because they're making these models. They're tying it back into the science standards. They're putting it all together. And it's my job to start with that one standard. And then by the end of it, the end of the project, there's 10 different standards across the different disciplines that they've hit. And I can say, that they excelled at each one of them in a different way. So that's really important. And that way we're always on track to what we need to learn, but I'm not going to tell them how we're going to learn it.
That's amazing, because based also on my own observation of this type of learning, what happens is you end up meeting these standards and going even beyond. And with children who are not bored with this, but who have actually done something meaningful and were engaged with this learning. So that is sometimes so kind of hard to understand, maybe, thinking that this kind of learning is just kind of chaotic, letting kids lead, but it actually is not. It does lead to not only more engagement, but really addressing what you need to address. And there is more that they learn, right? And show.
It's a very organized chaos.
Exactly. And actually,
It's
it's
very
not,
structured. And
yeah.
that kind of leads to like my own personality. I love structure and I love having, an objective and I love meeting it, but I'm a little bit more flexible about how we meet it because they're all different people. They're not all Miss Miranda and they all are
Mm.
going to be different things when they go out into the world. So they all need to have this kind of exposure so they can get to where that is.
I agree. What kind of projects are you currently working on, children are working on, that you are excited about, or what project you have in mind, perhaps, or you heard children speaking about?
Well, we've been doing a lot of coding and programming, and the students, I noticed they all have different levels of entry points with technology. Some of them use technology at home, they're using Roblox, they're
Hmm.
playing Minecraft, and some of them have that's not been something introduced to them, so it's not an interest that they've developed yet. And I was trying to figure out how me as one person standing in front of the room, like watching them, how I can like respond to five or six people saying, I don't get it, I need help. Like, how am I going to be in all those places? And an opportunity came up for them to have mentors that are in high school and that can help them with this. And it's just something that we just had one meeting about, and now I'm thinking about how that can be just a full-blown, program where we have these mentors that check in with the students, and they create, different challenges for them to code, and then the students do them, and then
Hmm.
they can talk to them about what they've done or issues that they've had, or like how they can troubleshoot it together. And suddenly, like, they have these role models who are going off to college and already have their STEM, career in mind. And now our students who are in third, fourth, and fifth grade are like, I could be, a computer engineer, or like I could be,
Hmm.
a designer. So I thought that was so cool because it's not just about Miss Miranda anymore. It's not just about them, but it's also like, oh, there's other kids who are aspiring to things.
Hmm.
So, they have this exposure that's real, and I think it could be really successful. So that's what we're working on building out right now.
I love this idea because mentors, people who are doing these jobs, that is inspiring because there's the connection to someone who is not the teacher who is teaching the subject, but someone who is already doing it in certain capacity. So just like learning from each other. This is very powerful. And also the fact that these kids already starting to see a little bit like I could do it actually as a job, right? Because they do it on a they actually doing it. They're not learning about doing it, but they actually doing it. So it's absolutely amazing. Patricia, if you had one thing before, like a final question in this chat, but obviously I could talk about this topic for a very long time, and you too,
That's what
I'm
I do.
sure. Could you exactly? Could you explain to our audience the difference between STEM and STEAM? I know that there is a slight difference.
To be honest with you, I've heard a lot of people, in my field just kind of use it interchangeably
Oh,
now.
okay.
I like STEAM because I really love the art aspect, and I really feel like there are so many students who find writing as that block,
Mm,
and the art really takes it to another level. STEAM is just missing that A, missing that art part, but technically, people say, like, within engineering, you're designing, so that's art. So it's just a letter, to be honest with you, in that
exactly.
acronym. But I like saying STEM because I like the inclusivity of it. So I feel like that's something that for my students they're very drawn to, and I love that for them.
Yeah, and again, a lot of neurodivergent children, they're very artistic and really express themselves so well because they're so detailed in that different form, which is a just like any other form. It's just a little different form. And I also wanted to ask you about some maybe one or two tips you would have for current teachers, teachers who are maybe finishing up their bachelor's degree and they might be thinking of teaching science or just teaching different subjects in, let's say, at the elementary grade level. What would you advise to young teachers who are entering this profession? It's not an easy profession. It's extremely rewarding if you have, I think, a certain approach towards it. I wonder what your advice or tips would be.
I mean, this is something you have to be totally passionate about. This is the work of the heart, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
There's so much that's put into it that's beyond the lesson plan and the curriculum and your rating. It's really about wanting to make a difference and finding
mhm,
a way to do it. And it's not being focused on expensive equipment
yeah,
or, now because everyone's talking about STEAM, everyone wants this, state of the art maker space and like 100 3D printers and all this technology. And when I started, there was none of that. But because our students had this interest, and because Mr. Torres saw this vision, we really cultivated a place that has the things that can get them to that level. But when it started, it wasn't that, but it was just as meaningful and just as influential as it is today. So it's really about having this passion for students to explore this curiosity, being open to it, being able to put your time into it, knowing that you're going to spend all these extra hours and your prep and your lunch, like just
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to pull this because, he really loves when he gets to do this with the Play-Doh, and this one really loves, I got to find this program. That's what it's about. It's about
Yeah.
making those adaptations, and it's so rewarding, and it totally pays off. And when other people get to see it, that's also very rewarding, because people are like, whoa, South Bronx, like, you guys are doing amazing things here. And
Yeah.
I was like, of course we are. We have
Right.
amazing minds here. You know,
Yeah, very, very, very cool. And let's say, not every teacher, not every young teacher starting might have a principal like Mr. Torres, right? They might have different ideas or just be different. I don't know. They're not going to say like do whatever you want, but kids need to be engaged or something like that. They are different people. So sometimes young teachers just not so sure about like what they can do, what's acceptable, what's not. But how would you encourage them to kind of like still try and be themselves and just not to be afraid of doing something that might not be done in school yet? You know what I mean? Because it can be always a little
it's
tricky.
tough. Yeah, it's tough sometimes. But I think, always advocating for the students
Yeah.
is always going to get you where you need to be. I think,
Hmm.
if you have a student, if you have a teacher teacher, if you have a principal that is very by the book and not, so into this out of the box kind of thinking, you can say, well, I tried this and this is what we got out of it. And this one that's usually running out of the classroom or does no work did all of this. And can I do more things like this? And just it's not going to be a full overhaul. Like even mine wasn't that. And even now, there's standards, there's things I have to do, there's
Hmm.
state, requirements, and we do all of that. And then when it's done, we're like, okay, let's do this. So it's sometimes it's just a little bit at a time, and sometimes it's just that one class that you have outside on the grass, and that's okay. And then it just goes from there. So I always tell people, try it, show your principal, show them like what can happen if we do it.
Hmm.
There's always positive results, and sometimes that sparks their curiosity. So that I think that's helpful.
That's a wonderful tip. And start with something small, right? Don't like totally revolutionize everything, but do something small and then be enthusiastic about it and just kind of talk with the principal about it. Hey, I've just done this and I just noticed this and that. And that kind of starts building this kind of relationship between the teacher and the principal. Here's this teacher, definitely trying something new, right? And the purpose is always to help children learn, really. That's what this is about. What do parents say? I'm sure you do get a chance to see parents and hear a little bit from them too, like what they say about this type of teaching.
That's one of my favorite parts too, because they'll come and tell me, I did this project with him. In the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
I sent home these little packets with just a couple of items for a very simple project. And they're like, are we going to do one like every week? Because we had so much fun. We did it together Saturday morning. Can you send more like that home? And I'm like, sure, like that's awesome. Like that's what we want to do. I think my first year working there, I was like, we have to have a science fair. And we had like over 200 projects, and everyone's like, where are we going to put the projects? And I was like, this is such a good problem to have. And the parents loved it because they work with them on it, and we want them to. So
Yeah.
they feel engaged, they get excited, and then they come to me at parent teacher night and they're like, Miss Miranda, when I was a kid, I loved science, and thank you so much for like sending home that assignment and that project, because then I got to do it with them, and it was really nice. And a lot of them are just like, how can we be more involved? So it helps
Hmm.
with the parent engagement as well, and that's really important too.
Yeah, it is. It is incredible because that's just what it is. It's a community, and parents they see. I mean, they hear their child's reaction, right? When they come home and they're gonna say either nothing, or they're going to actually say, "Hey, something cool happened today." And if something really cool happened, you're going to hear it as a parent because that's what I hear. sometimes from, and you don't have to even ask so much. You're going to hear it as a parent because it meant something for the kid, right? So that's absolutely so important. You are, I'm sure, a very, very busy teacher, but I wonder if you are anywhere on social media. So if anybody is interested, they can follow you. But I don't know if that's really, if you are any on any social media or not.
Not right now. I'm
Yeah,
trying to, so I'm in my leadership program, so I want to be a leader one day, in administrative
yeah,
aspect, and I kind of want to keep this kind of thinking, this philosophy going.
yeah.
And so I'm building out my website.
Woo, look at that.
That's coming. But yeah, I want everyone to, even if it's just one little lesson in a week, in a month, it
Yeah.
is game changing. And when the positive results are shown, then there's no denying the need to do it more often. So, it starts off as one thing and it will snowball.
Amazing. I mean, congratulations on working on the website. I know this is always a project, but it's very important. And I'm sure with that, you will be at least on one or two platforms. But I'm sure that school has a website too. I know
Yes,
that Mr. Torres is active on his Instagram account, but we can always add school website too. And I would be, I would like to really hear in the future when the website is done, let us know about it.
absolutely.
That would be great. And that would be something to kind of serve as a resource also for other teachers to just kind of like learn from you. Is that,
That was the purpose, because I
yeah,
wanted to, some of these questions that we talked about, I wanted to put up, guides for
yep,
that, and I thought that would be such a great place to just have it in one place where someone can say, "Oh, I have an extra 20 minutes today. Let me see what I can do." And
yeah,
I wish I had that when I started. So that's kind of where it's come from. But Mr. Torres also posts, like, everything that we're working on. He posts
mhm,
everything,
yeah.
and you can just we do so many things at our school, and just I think it's changed our community for generations.
It's
And
absolutely amazing, and it should be visible on social media. I mean, there's so much stuff on social media. Some things we want, some things, most of them we don't want to see, but we do. So, and here are some really tangible, innovative ways that education is changing children's lives, communities, and these things are happening without the whole system being changed. We really honestly can't wait for that. And that's what needs to be magnified. That's what I'm doing, what I'm doing. So I just want our audience to, for now, since Patricia is not yet active on social media, but she's building the website. So soon you are going to hear more about that. But the school has a website, and also Mr. Torres has a really, really cool social media platform, and mostly on Instagram. So just for now, follow these, right, and see what's happening in this community because it's vibrant. It's absolutely amazing. Something that really, I think, like so many people can learn about administrators, teachers, because you guys are showing that things can be done. It's just you have to have a little bit different approach, and that changes everything. How you then approach education, really. And I would like to invite our wonderful listeners and viewers to tune in once the show airs and also follow Getting Inspired with Dr. Barb so you don't miss an episode. And let us know what you think about these ideas. Contact me. You can also contact Mr. Torres on Instagram too. And if I hear something, I'll let Patricia know because the clip from the episode will be on social media platforms, so she will hear when people talk about it.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you today on Getting Inspired with Dr. Barb. It was absolutely amazing to hear all the good things you're doing with children.
Thank you so much for having me. And this was so nice being able to share this with others. And I hope that, sparks some curiosity and ingenuity from other teachers, parents, anyone who's listening.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Patricia, and thank you, everybody. See you on social media. Bye bye.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Thank you. This is Getting Inspired with Dr. Barb.